Raider Nation, what's up? Today we're breaking down the biggest winners and losers from the 2025 NFL Draft, but with a twist. This list only includes players who were already on the Raiders roster before the team made their draft picks and signed undrafted free agents. We'll start on offense, then move over to defense. And here, it's all gas, no brakes, because Raiders football never takes a day off. Let's dive in. Offensive winners, Michael Mayer. There was a lot of speculation that the Raiders might add another tight end during the draft. They didn't, and that's great news for Mayer. Not only did he avoid being traded, but the roster is now set up where he could stay firmly in that TE1 role. With players like Tyquan Thornton, Brock Bowers, and Jacoby Myers potentially spreading the field, Mayer could have more chances than ever to shine. Aidan O'Connell. Heading into the draft, there were rumors the Raiders might draft a quarterback early, maybe even in round 2 or 3. Instead, they waited until round 6 to select Cam Miller at pick 215. That move shows confidence in O'Connell as the backup. And realistically, he's much more prepared to step in behind a starter like Geno Smith. Geno Smith. Speaking of Geno, he's another clear winner. The Raiders gave him everything he could ask for. They added 3 wide receivers: Jack Beck, Tyquan Thornton, a deep threat, and Tommy Mellott, a dynamic athlete whose testing numbers are eerily similar to Julian Edelman. They also landed standout running back Ashton Jeanty and bolstered the offensive line with 2 new picks. It's obvious the front office is fully committed to setting up Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty for success this season. DJ Glaze before the draft. DJ Glaze was pegged as one of the players with the most to lose. Turns out, he came out a winner. The Raiders could have gone after a big-name offensive lineman like Armand Mabou, but they didn't. They stuck with their guys. While they did draft Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, both are expected to line up on the left side, keeping Glaze secure at right tackle. The team's confidence in him made a big statement. Jackson Powers Johnson. Finally, Jackson Powers Johnson deserves a mention. One of the biggest takeaways from this draft? The Raiders are building their offensive identity around strength in the trenches, and Powers Johnson is a huge part of that vision moving forward. The Raiders are sending a clear message. They want to play hard-nosed, physical football, the kind where you feel every hit and dread every snap. Think Philadelphia Eagles, think Detroit Lions. The Raiders want that same reputation: tough, mean, and unrelenting. Jack Beck, for example, isn't just a receiver. He loves to block and brings the attitude you need for this style of offense. Across the board, the players they brought in are physical, blue-collar football guys. And no one embodies that mentality more than Jackson Powers Johnson. He's the perfect fit for an FU football team, a grinder who will set the tone in the trenches. Biggest winner? Let me know. Who do you think benefited the most from the Raiders' 2025 draft and UDFA signings? Offense, defense, it's wide open. For me, it's a tough call between 2 players. Ashton Jeanty is a major winner. The way this team built around the running game shows they're committed to giving Jeanty every chance to shine. But if I had to pick just one name, it's Geno Smith. The Raiders gave him a stronger O-line, a serious run game, and better weapons in the passing attack. If things click, Geno Smith could be in for a career year. Offensive losers. Now let's talk about a few players who didn't exactly come out ahead. Trey Tucker. There's still hope for Tucker, especially on special teams, where he could have a bigger role in kick and punt returns. But let's be real. When the Raiders draft 3 receivers, Jack Beck in round 2, Tyquan Thornton in round 4, and Tommy Mellott in round 6, it sends a clear message. Tucker's path to earning a major role at wide receiver just got a lot tougher. In fact, Beck is already a better all-around player, and Thornton brings even more speed to stretch the field. Tucker's best chance to contribute? Use him creatively, jet sweeps, gadget plays, anything that gets the ball in his hands and puts pressure on defenses. Thayer Munford. Maybe the biggest loser on offense is Thayer Munford. The Raiders added Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers in the draft, both offensive linemen expected to slot in ahead of him. Munford, a 7th-round pick from the Josh McDaniels era, now faces an uphill battle just to make the roster. With the team likely keeping only 9 or 10 linemen, Munford is sitting dangerously close to the edge at lineman number. Patavde. Carter Bradley, last year's UDFA quarterback. Carter Bradley is also on shaky ground. The Raiders didn't just sign another undrafted quarterback. Malik Williams from UNLV. They also drafted Cam Miller in the 6th round. On top of that, Tommy Mellott could see some quarterback reps, thanks to his dual threat background. Realistically, the 3 quarterbacks on the roster will be Geno Smith, Aidan O'Connell, and Cam Miller. Bradley's odds of sticking around, even on the practice squad, don't look great. Zamir White. Finally, Zamir White finds himself in a tough spot. The Raiders drafted Ashton Jeanty with their top pick, the best running back prospect in the class. While White hasn't been pushed off the roster yet, the addition of Jeanty changes the running back room completely. Unless White makes a serious leap during training camp, his role could shrink fast. Let's just be real here. It's not good news for Zamir White. Between drafting Ashton Jeanty and adding a versatile fullback/tight end hybrid like Pat Conroy as a UDFA, the Raiders clearly aren't standing still at the running back spot. Conroy is an excellent athlete, and the extra competition is only making things harder for Zeus. Honestly, it's fair to wonder, will Zamir White even make the team? Another offensive loser, Dylan Parham. This one might stir up some debate, but I have to call it like I see it. Dylan Parham, versatile offensive lineman, is in a tricky spot. Parham is entering the final year of his rookie deal, and the Raiders look like they're already preparing for life without him. They drafted Caleb Rogers in round 3, another highly versatile lineman. They also added veteran Alex Kappa in free agency and gave Jordan Meredith a decent chunk of change to stay. Add it all up and it's clear. The Raiders are stacking the O-line with players who can fill multiple roles, which makes Parham expendable after this season. Now, shifting to the defense, biggest defensive winner, Isaiah Pola-Mao. You could make a strong argument that Isaiah Pola-Mao was the biggest winner on defense after the draft. If the season started today, he would likely be the Raiders' starting free safety. Now, I'll be honest, I'm still a little concerned about the overall strength of the free safety room. Pola-Mao is a good player, but ideally, you want him as your 3rd safety, not your number 1. Still, the Raiders are showing full faith in him. They passed on free safeties like Xavier Watts multiple times during the draft. They gave Pola-Mao a 2-year, $8 million contract extension earlier this offseason. All signs point to the team believing Pola-Mao is ready for a bigger role. Devin White, another winner at linebacker. Another defensive player who came out ahead? Devin White. I still believe Ellendon Roberts is the best linebacker on this team. But when you look at the draft and free agency, it's clear. The Raiders didn't draft a starting caliber linebacker early. They waited until round 7 to grab one, Tommy Eichenberg. They added a few UDFAs, but no major threats. As of now, Devin White would be the starter next to Roberts. That could change if the Raiders make a move in free agency, but today White is sitting in a strong position on the depth chart. Trey Taylor, quiet defensive winner. Another under-the-radar winner? Trey Taylor at strong safety. The Raiders added his former teammate as a UDFA, but otherwise, Taylor's spot looks safe. This coaching staff has long believed that Taylor still has room to grow, and when you look at the safety group, Jeremy Chin, Isaiah Pola-Mao, Lonnie Johnson Jr., they're clearly favoring physical, hard-hitting players. Trey Taylor may not be as physical as those guys, but he's a Jim Thorpe Award winner and brings ball skills and versatility to the secondary. If I were Trey Taylor, I'd be feeling pretty good after how this draft shook out. More defensive winners. After the draft, Darnay Holmes. Another name to keep an eye on, Darnay Holmes. It sure looks like the Raiders might be planning for Darnay Holmes to be their starting nickel corner. Now, to be fair, that's not necessarily the direction I would have gone personally, but here's the situation. The Raiders have a lot of outside corners with upside under Pete Carroll, but at nickel, it's basically Sam Webb and Darnay Holmes. Could they try moving someone like Eric Stokes or even Cameron Richardson inside? Maybe. Could they use more 3-safety looks with Isaiah Pola-Mao dropping down? Definitely a possibility. Patrick Graham loves to get creative with his DBs, but today Darnay Holmes has to feel like a big winner after the draft. Amari Gaynor. Another under-the-radar winner? Amari Gaynor. All offseason, I've been calling Gaynor my sleeper pick at linebacker, and after how the draft went down, I feel even better about it. The Raiders didn't invest heavily at linebacker in the draft. That tells me they have more confidence in guys like Amari Gaynor and Amari Burney than maybe we first realized. Both Gaynor and Burney are trending up heading into camp. Now, let's look at some defensive losers. After the draft, Charles Snowden. The first name that has to be mentioned, Charles Snowden. Snowden already had a court case looming in July for last season's DUI incident. The Raiders also drafted two versatile defensive linemen who can play both edge and defensive tackle. Plus, they added several UDFAs who can do the same. Before the draft, Tyree Wilson told me he wasn't going anywhere. And once you saw how the Raiders handled the draft, it became clear. Charles Snowden's days are probably numbered. In fact, I think UDFA John Joyner is better than Snowden. Honestly, Andre Carter might be better too. Big-time loser here. Matthew Butler. Another defensive lineman feeling the heat? Matthew Butler. Butler was already on the outside looking in, and now the Raiders drafted two more defensive tackles in round 4 and round 6. They also signed veteran Kyle Peko. You've got young talent like Nesta Jade Silvera and John Luwalu coming up, and even though there's some minor concern around Christian Wilkins and a foot issue, he's still practicing. Bottom line, the Raiders sent a loud and clear message to Matthew Butler. It's probably over for you here. Demarion Richardson. Another tough break. Demarion Richardson. Drafted last year by the old regime, Richardson now finds himself pushed down the depth chart. The Raiders added Darian Porter, a long, lanky, athletic freak at corner, and guys like Eric Stokes are ahead of him too. The team clearly values size and athleticism at corner, and that's just not Richardson's strong suit compared to what they now have. Also, don't sleep on UDFA pickup Melvin Dodson out of Kansas. He's another player who could pass Richardson by. Tommy Eichenberg. And finally, Tommy Eichenberg. Drafted in the 5th round last season under the old staff, Eichenberg now finds himself squeezed. The Raiders drafted Cody Lindenberg in round 7 this year, a linebacker with a very similar skill set. Plus, the team already has a rock-solid middle linebacker in Elandon Roberts. It feels like Eichenberg is getting boxed out. And honestly, the battle at linebacker could end up being the most interesting competition in training camp. John Luwalu. The last name I'll mention here, and I might end up regretting this later, is John Luwalu. Here's why. The Raiders drafted Tank Hemingway and also brought in J.J. Peaks, two defensive tackles who are going to rotate into the lineup. On top of that, veterans like Matt Butler and Adam Butler are still around. Tyree Wilson is going to have his opportunities too. For Luwalu, heading into his 2nd year, he was probably hoping to carve out a bigger role. But after the moves the Raiders made, it feels like that window is starting to close, at least for now. And it has to sting even more when you realize Rob Leonard, the new defensive line coach, might have been seen as someone who could give Luwalu a clean slate and a real opportunity. That chance just got a lot tougher. Final thoughts. So Raider Nation, who do you think was the biggest loser from the 2025 NFL Draft? I've given you some of my ideas, both on offense and on defense. If there's someone I forgot to mention, please drop their name in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's go Raiders!